We are strangers in a strange land, lawfare refugees in a lawless time. As their Pharisee forefathers did, today's attorneys weaponize law. The new high priests are titled PhDs. In our post-republic dragocracy, healers are killers. Vaccines are poisons. Nazis are heroes. Schools are pedoed. Teachers, trannies. Big church puts Paul over Yeshua. Our enemies are not in Russia, but DC. We enter a new year of constant crisis, choreographed by the corrupted. The great cull is begun. Castles were besieged. Now our bodies are. Smallpox blankets and mustard gas replaced by mRNA, 5G, and hydrogel. America is gone, assassinated by Antifa. But there are still Americans. Most will be killed, but a few crucibled. And as Herodotus said, the 100th will be a warrior and rally the others. The bitterly blooded, as at Dunkirk, will learn. And as iron sharpens iron over the bodies of the dead, we will rise again. A retired SOCOM soldier, former DEA special agent and DIA intelligence officer, targeted by the deep state, turned whistleblower warrior, served and sabotaged, rejected and redeemed, failed and forgiven, betrayed and saved, rejecting revenge, humbled and blessed, repurposed in redemption, as chaplain, leader, teacher, and truth teller. Now America's intelligence officer, following God, leading my family, and any that choose to join on a long trail of tears walk to freedom and faith. Welcome. I'm Jeff Prather, and this is the Prather Point. Hey, everybody, welcome. A very important show today. Some really fantastic guests coming up. But before we get to that, Idaho's inflection point, stopping mRNA jabs. Trump dines with Bill Gates while RFK stands alone against Big Pharma on the Hill. The cabal collapses France and Japanese governments. The FTC penalizes the dark economy PORNHUB for $5 million for PEDOS. And married with kids are the happiest, and the U.S. youth is coming back to church. Lots of good news. And then later on, in just a few minutes, Idaho's nurse Laura DEMARAY and Dr. Kirk Moore, hero, and Senator SHIPPY from Idaho will show us about their heroic efforts to stop the weaponization via mRNA. So glad to see you. See you guys on Rumble. Don't see anybody on X yet. But yeah, so note the timing here. Before RFK's lone stand against the mRNA mass murder, this was an unspoken assurance, I assess, to the deep state's oligarchs masquerading as tech leaders. Trump dined with them on September 4th, exhibiting artificial intelligence research. And see, so these guys are masquerading as tech leaders, but they're really oligarchs. They're sponsoring his campaign. He likes to think of them as fellow businessmen. But you know, this shows that he is still all in. And while they're saying it's about AI, note the conversation. When Bill Gates talks at the dinner, he praises Trump's warp speed. Trump has never asked for forgiveness, never repented from that. The warp speed, and said now the president's talking with him about curing HIV, polio, and sickle cell disease. We've heard this forever. And this was, again, the Fauci line way back. And of course, I work in this field. I do competitive intelligence in the biotech field, and then GRIN, genetics, robotics, information, nanotechnology. So, you know, this is more blathering, more lying. He said, we might even eradicate some diseases. This goes back to the AI 48-hour cancer cure nonsense, which, of course, they're causing cancer. With all the turbo cancer from the spike proteins. The point was that he mentioned warp speed and what he had done there. So that before RFK went up on the Hill and scared all the senators, that's why they're yelling at him, both sides. That's fear. I've seen that before. People mask their fear with anger and outrage. But he did a great job. He's certainly not perfect, as Sasha Latipova has pointed out when she's been on. But he did point out that doctors get huge bonuses from Big Pharma to push the so-called vaccines, what they changed the definition of vaccine, onto children. And it's even worse than he described. But he said, HHS Director Kennedy said, many doctors are profiting directly from keeping children fully vaccinated. 50% of revenues to most pediatricians come from vaccines. There's a whole structure where Blue Cross and the other insurance companies pay bonuses For example, if 95% of their clients are fully vaccinated, they get huge bonuses, could be tens of thousands of dollars. Yet that this financial pipeline explains why parents who question the vaccine schedule often find themselves kicked out of medical practices. Uh, and if you want to question the schedule or anything, then your pediatrician will throw you out. And that's not, it's even worse than that, much worse. And as I've said, the government is in on all of this, trafficking children and transhumanizing children. And that's what I'm going to be talking about this weekend, Saturday, September 13th, at the FFA Enrichment Center, 1055 Southwest Prairie Parkway. This is my only in-person speech this year in Des Moines, Iowa. If you want to join, I'd love to see you there. And that's being sponsored by Team America Iowa as well. And I've put that up anytime. That's on my Patreon as well. So hope to see you there, but it's even worse. And I will be delineating and laying it out in detail. And I certainly don't have time to do that today, but you will be surprised. But a major study out shows COVID vaccines, so-called vaccines, they're really bioweapons. It's really democide, reduces life expectancy by 37%, almost 40%. One of the world's leading epidemiologists has just raised the alarm after a bombshell study has just confirmed that people who received the COVID mRNA so-called vaccines have lost a staggering 35% of their life expectancy. It's a group of Italian researchers followed over 290,000 people for years. The study found that 2 mRNA vaccines resulted in a 37% lost survival time compared to the unvaccinated follow-up. And the alarming warning to the public, McCullough Foundation, of course, Dr. McCullough is a friend of mine, and he's been on many times, said this isn't public health, it's public sabotage. And that's what it really is. It's depopulation for repopulation. It is democide. It is the government killing off its own people. But we're going to have an answer to that today from our great guest. Like I said, a lot of good news. But also the French government is collapsing again. Why is that important to us? Because France is an ally, sort of. Haven't been really that great since the revolution when they blockaded the British. But that's because their revolution went into human secularism, tried to destroy Christianity, just like the Mexican Revolution, closed Catholic churches as well. But Prime Minister Francois Bayrou lost a confidence vote on Monday, triggering his ouster. And he's not obfuscating the fact that they cannot afford the debt that is going on. So even though he's 74 years old, he's kind of appealing to young people, because over there, and I used to see this with my dad, his European business would come over here because the socialized score over there, no entrepreneurs could ever move forward. But the French government is collapsing. And really, it's the cabal that is collapsing it, or the global cabal is the international members of the intelligence communities, the Five Eyes, the Seven Eyes. It's really an international crime syndicate, and it's using the dark economy, which is human beings, which is slavery, trafficking, weapons, and drugs through diplomatic pouch. Because we can't do that, but they can do that all the time. And remember, one of the things that came up here with the French is the French Parliament was voting to oust its second prime minister, and while Macron wants to go ahead and pledge even more money to Ukraine, which is the CIA-developed, sponsored war for the biolabs. So really, it is the global cabal. Ukraine was supposed to be the first digital state. So what are we seeing with all of these digital state efforts through the global cabal? We're seeing them collapse. I'm seeing this across the competitive intelligence spectrum in GRIN, in genetics, robotics, information, nanotechnology, where I really do most of my work in biotech. And of course, you don't see any of that because that's for my clients. I only work for the good guys, but it's all failing across the board. So that's really important to understand. Also, Japan's prime minister has just resigned. Of course, I spent a lot of time in Japan studying with my grandmaster. The Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has just resigned, and they're losing a prime minister every year. They can't even keep a prime minister for a year. So this again is showing the destabilization of nation states who were our allies, because after we beat Japan in World War II, and nobody had ever beaten Japan before, ever, except us. They became businessmen, and they waged war through business because that's where they found success. But now they're falling apart because they are so corrupted. Now, contrary to rumors out there, Shinzo Abe, who was assassinated, he was assassinated, and it wasn't the guy with the wooden gun, it was a guy behind him, but it wasn't because of COVID at that time. But there was a lot of corruption. It was the Moonies out of South Korea, a lot of stuff like that happening. But it just shows the criminal syndicates, the global cabals are controlling and destabilizing all these governments. And that's important because then they get, when they no longer have nation state governments in charge, they have trans-regional global cartels controlling. And that's really what's going on. That's what the nation state is fading. And of course, I've told you to read Sir James Glubb, Fate of Empires. He studied them all. They all last about 250 to 275 years. We're also very similar to the Roman Republic, which fell and then became the Roman Empire. And we're just like that now. American Republic has fallen. We're an American Empire, and we are fading. That happened because they let foreigners come in. They also let foreigners run their Roman army. We're doing the exact same thing. And Rome was conquered by barbarians, but it was co-opted by Christians, by the Christian martyr blood. And so that's what I'm saying we've got to do. And that's why I advocate my chaplaincy, christchaplaincy.com. You can join me there. I just did the sermon this Sunday. You can look at my Substack, jeffreyprather.substack.com. I just published my sermon. All of that's free. But of course, you can support the show, and you see the banner there, staybrewed.com or teamamericacoffee.com, 20% off there, where you can get my wife's favorite, Night and Day. This is by Lori and Craig Wire, and they're great 7 girls that have been on the show. Great Christians, great constitutionalists. It's great. And then if you want to get my blend, I've got my own coffee blend, Major's private label. That's at jeffreyprather.com. Really good. We've been waiting for that to come. Don't get that Black Rifle crap that they didn't support Kyle Rittenhouse and that they're trannies and they violate the Ranger Code of leaving no one behind. But get that as well. You can also go in jeffreyprather.com shop and get Team America mugs and Freedom is Taken, all of that kind of good stuff as well there as well. So I do see somebody on X. That's probably that's Connie. Okay, Connie, welcome. Thought that would be Marco there. Other good news is the FTC has penalized $5 million to Pornhub. So Pornhub is the porn site where Hunter had his own page on. And remember, when we're talking about child trafficking, child slavery, besides going into rape fields and factories and everything else, they're being used in porn. So the $5 million isn't much, but it's a start. And it's showing the 4G, fourth generation resistance building across America against the 5th generation war being waged against us, which doesn't even look like war, really. So this is good news. This is a good start. Just like RFK standing alone and almost no one standing with him, that's how corrupt it is up there. That's a great reality check. That's a great enemy-friendly identification for everybody who was still confused. And of course, Trump was still standing by. No one's more disappointed than me to hear that. But the parent company for Pornhub is AYLO, AYLO, formerly known as MindGeek, and they had to pay an additional $5 million to Utah. Of course, you know, I've had on the folks in Sound of Freedom in the past on there, and I've also exposed the problems with that as well. But what AYLO had to admit in federal court in 2023 is that it had profited from sex trafficking. And so that is, sex trafficking is human slavery, and that is child slavery. And so it's a small amount to get started, but it is a start. And so we are making progress. And I want you to understand this. Remember, I've said my children will be in this war, and I'm training my children to be in this fight as well. So fourth generation resistance movements are won in decades, or in the case of Christians co-opting, not conquering the Roman Empire, centuries it took. And Yeshua even says that, where he says, if someone asks you to go 1 mile with them, go 2. That's actually referring to the legionaries who could conscript somebody to carry their stuff on their pillium, so they'd be more refreshed. And there's even a little scene in The Chosen that demonstrate that pretty clearly. So that's good news. Sorry, excuse me. I just finished my second cataract surgery, and little congested from that. Also, studies are confirming what we parents know is married couples are happier. Studies from the Institute for Family Studies highlight that married women are much happier than single women. The report, authored by Wendy Wang, out of the General Social Survey in Pursuit of Marriage, Motherhood, and Women's Well-Being, said that 40% of married mothers aged 18 to 55 describe themselves as very happy, compared to only 25% of single childless women. The same. This is not new. This has been proven for a long time, but this is the propaganda that's out there, because if you don't have kids, you don't have a country. China has this problem now, where they had they enacted the one child policy. Now they don't have enough children. America is fading in that regard. So is Europe as well. And I just talked about that with France, England, and then Japan. This is the global cabal. These are the double states coming together to destroy nation states. And what's going to come next is transnational corporate regions controlled by the giant oligarch masquerading as tech leaders. But more good news is church attendance is surging among younger Americans, according to Barna, BARNA.com. And I just talked about this in my sermon on Sunday. I said, we're a chaplaincy, but you should also go to church. We do. And it's after Pedo Joe's and Joe's pedo administration, because they were sick of all the trannyism and all the perversion. And so they are turning back to God, back to Yeshua, Jesus's actual name. And so that is great news. Church frequency is improving among millennials and Gen Z. However, older generations are starting to fade from going to church. And I can tell you that I've seen this anecdotally as I'm talking to young people. When, of course, I've exposed the American Christian Zionist heretical lie in the vineyard parable, where Yeshua says on the steps of the temple to the Pharisees, when you kill the son, you are no longer the chosen people. And I've actually talked to young folks who are respectfully debating with their parents, hey, these are not the chosen people anymore. And Yeshua even says so. But this is good to see that this is happening, because we have left them a mess, and they are going to have to fix it. But we will never fix it without having a moral base, and our morals come from our spirituality, and our spirituality comes from our Mosaic 10 commandments, Christic 2 commandments, and Autochthonous 2 commandments, which, if you don't know, are never harm children and everything is born of woman. Those are the indigenous commandments that make up American exceptionalism. As I've said many times, we're exceptional because we will fight, kill, and die for freedom. We'll go to foreign countries to fight, kill, and die for their freedom. And then we do something that no one else in the history of the world's ever done. We give it back. And that's what makes us exceptional. So that's what's going on. But I'm really excited and honored to have a very special guest. And that's the title of the show, because even more good news is the fourth generation resistance fight from the bottom up, because the top is totally compromised. The top's been totally captured. I've told you as many times, as an intelligence officer or as a special agent, we always want to recruit at the highest levels. And that's what's happened. It's treason. So we've got to build the resistance from the ground up. That's from my special forces time as well. That's what's happening. and my special guest really exemplify that. And that's the title of the show, Special: Idaho's Inflection Point, Stopping mRNA Jabs. And this is only happening in like 9 states around the country. So we've got Idaho's nurse Laura DEMARAY, Dr. Kirk Moore, the hero who would not be silenced and saved children at the sacrifice of his own career. And we might even have Senator SHIPPY step in here as well. So let me just read these guys off because they are really impressive folks, and I'm really honored to have them. Dr. Kirk Moore is a respected 60-year-old physician from Utah who faced the unimaginable possibility of spending up to 35 years in prison. His crime, honoring his sacred Hippocratic oath to do no harm. His actions were driven by compassion. He sought to protect children whose only alternatives were vaccines their parents distrusted. With explicit informed consent, he administered harmless saline shots. This is the guy. This is the man. This is undercover resistance. I am just so impressed and honored to have him here. His commitment soon extended to adults who face similar impossible choices, risk loss, military discharge, travel restrictions. He's not a criminal. He's a devoted father, raising 2 children. Decorated U.S. Navy flight surgeon. I didn't know that. He's dedicated his life to caring for patients during COVID-19. He treated patients with free of charge, making house calls, providing life-saving protocols. Military personnel were threatened with court-martial, some just hours from deployment. Everyday men and women forced into impossible choices. And Dr. Moore's willingness to act meant preserving both their convictions and their lives. Yet for this principled stance, he endured relentless persecution. He lost hospital privileges, was for refusing to comply with mask mandates, was stripped of board certification due to privilege requirements. And at the heart of his actions was the cornerstone of medical ethics, informed consent. Instead of honoring that principle, the federal government launched an aggressive and malicious prosecution. I'm real familiar with that one myself, one that set a chilling precedent for every American's rights. And so he was jailed. He was arrested and incarcerated for 22 days, isolated for 22 hours each day for simply trying to share scheduling information with co-defendants. Despite escalating charges aimed at silencing him, he remained steadfast. But in an unprecedented fashion, the Department of Justice, under the explicit direction of Attorney General Pam Bondi, yep, she did something right, dismissed the case mid-prosecution. Marjorie Taylor Greene said this was never about justice. It was about silencing dissent. Representative Thomas Massey said if the federal government can fabricate charges against doctors, parents, and political opponents, none of us are safe. Presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. posted twice on X in direct support of Dr. Moore. Dr. Moore deserves a medal for his courage and his commitment to healing. Dr. Moore gave his patients a choice when the federal government refused to do so. This is really key, the timing, because RFK was just up there being hammered, which again it's great enemy-friendly identification to see how corrupt. It's 98% corrupt up there. It's across the board like that. Get used to it. Get your head in the fight. That's the fight. That's the reality. But it doesn't mean we can't win the fight. But then while RFK's up there in headquarters after Trump dines with Gates and Gates praises warp speed in Idaho, they're doing the hard work from the ground up. I don't see Senator SHIPPY with us, so I'm going to skip his bio. Laura DEMARAY is a registered nurse in Idaho and Oregon, specialized in wound and ostomy care. She's experienced business owner with construction and coffee, traveling to India, Brazil, and Costa Rica. Well, Costa Rica, coffee, I've worked there, great coffee. She's worked at state campaigns, spearheaded national and local initiatives to raise awareness against child abuse and domestic violence, and was the first female inline skater across the U.S. and Alaska to raise awareness and funding for abused women and children. She's now focusing on awareness about the adverse effects of COVID-19 injections and all genetic biologic technology shots, because none of them work. I can tell you that from experience. I look at thousands of pages every month in my competitive intelligence work, and it's all failing miserably. So she's using grassroots bottom-up approaches to prevent presenting county to county in Idaho with world-renowned scientists, doctors, and other subject matter experts. And the counties are starting to listen. 9 Idaho counties and 1 Washington County have signed variations of pushing back against these shots. And that's at the level we need to do this, at the county level. And it's going to take a long time to do it. It's a lot of work, but we've got to do that. And she helps community members access COVID-19 early home treatment and long COVID or long vax resources. And she's a volunteer advocate for React 19 that has over 36,000 gene therapy vaccine injured members. React 19 advocates for the injured as well as the financial, spiritual, and emotional support, a holistic support. Laura loves the Lord, is most thankful for her family and her grandchildren. So without further ado, I'm really honored to welcome you, Laura, and you, Dr. Moore, to the Prather Point. Thank you so much for your patience and for coming on.
Well, hi there. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Hi, Mr. Prather. Thank you so much for having me. And I know Senator Shippy is trying to get in. I see him in the I think he's in the waiting room.
Oh, okay. Let me. Oh, there he is. I didn't see him there. Okay. Well, I just threw my bio for Senator Shippy on the floor. So,
okay.
Senator Shippy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you want me to introduce him?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Senator Shippy is an Idaho state senator. He's going on his 2nd term. And, this part isn't in his bio, but, his family has been here a long time and they have quite a history. And Brandon can always share a little more, but his family was actually thrown in jail in the past in I think Idaho for standing up for homeschool and things like that, and also just the rights of citizens. And so he's got a history of putting his neck out there and taking the hits for community. Then he's a business owner, a local business owner. He's from New Plymouth here in Idaho, and I'll give his committees: Senate State Affairs Committee, the Senate Health and Welfare Committee, and he's vice chairman of the Senate Judiciary and Rules Committee. He's a foster parent, has lots of kids, a wonderful wife. And also last year he pushed the moratorium along with just our whole science team that you already know about, and we did not win, but we got a lot of learnings. And so anyway, that's sort of what we're pushing now is, there's kind of a 15-ish state move to have some variation of moratorium, and Senator Shippy is brave enough to stick his neck out there again, and he takes hits. As you know, I don't think anybody's taken the hit recently like Dr. Moore, though. There's just so much. And he's probably sick of me saying this, but I just want to say for Dr. Moore, to me, and I say this everywhere, we've seen in the past Oscar Schindler, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and Irina Schindler. Like, I'm a big fan of Schindler. And, I remember watching her play years ago and things like that, a play about her life where all her limbs were broken because she falsified documents and saved over 2,500 children from the death grip of the Nazis. And so anyway, to me, that is Dr. Moore. He is an American hero, just an absolute American hero.
He is in fact, that's exactly what is being said about Dr. Moore on Rumble Rant, and you're being called a saint, by the way. So yeah, I'm really so honored to have all of you. But yeah, let's start with you, Dr. Moore. Give me a little bit of give our audience a little background of what you went through, and I think most importantly how your fortitude and if faith was involved as well. Just really interested to hear, because to me, again, that looks classic, like classic 4th generation resistance that you did.
Well, Laura, thank you. It makes me super emotional. Sorry.
Me too.
That's okay. I cry on this show all the time.
It's a tough fight out there.
Look, I didn't do this to be sitting here talking to you guys. Selfishly, I guess I did it to kind of, my daughter was leaving to go to college, and so I needed to find a way to help her. And then her friends needed help, and then my staff needed help, and then it just kind of mushroomed and blossomed from there. So I just, look, I bought into the narrative in early 2020. I thought this was a really bad virus. I shut my office down. Very quickly, I realized that it was just nothing but, a fake scamdemic. And I was just looking at the science and looking at the data and reading everything. I tell everybody the three things that kind of woke me up were: one, when there was no treatment, which is just a complete fallacy when it comes to medicine. Two, when everybody in the world, every state, every county, every country, everybody was doing the exact same thing, and following the exact same playbook. I mean, we can't agree on what kind of potatoes we want to have for Thanksgiving dinner. And we have 208 countries in this world that are doing the exact same thing. And then the third strike for me was when we're not going to get back to normal until we have a shot in everybody's arm. And so I knew there that this was, that it was it was a good versus evil battle. And I wasn't very quick to calling this a bioweapon, but I am now.
Good.
I remember Vladimir Zelenko calling it a bioweapon, and I remember Michael Yeadon calling it a bioweapon. And I remember saying to my girlfriend at the time, I hope they have security, because that's they're going to be targeted. It's a very common term now. I even think I think there's a lot of people out there that are calling it bioweapon. I think even Peter McCullough, Pierre Corey, Paul Merrick. I'm not trying to put words in their mouths, but it is. It's an absolute evil humanity culling injection that is being foisted on all of us and I don't even think we know who they are. And certainly the people that we see, the Anthony Fauci's, the Bill Gates, those people, they're just puppets out of all of this, just like all of our leaders of our countries are puppets. And I think we're just caught in, humanity's just caught in the crosshairs right now. So after what I've been through, sorry, I got a little sidetracked. I started by treating people for COVID. I moved on to telling people not to take the vaccine because it was it was fake and it wasn't safe. And then when they mandated it, I decided that I needed to step in and do something. So I opened up a vaccine clinic. I gave saline shots to kids. I gave cards to their parents and other people that came in. I never had anybody that came in that wanted the vaccine that didn't get it. I didn't give any. There was nobody that came to me that wanted the vaccine. Everybody knew what I was doing, and I didn't give a saline shot to anybody that didn't know what they were getting. So, the lies that are out there about what it was that I was doing, I didn't take a dime from anybody. I didn't get paid for one iota. I mean, I might have had a couple people that brought us lunch. I was asking people to donate to a nonprofit organization that was helping to change laws here in the state of Utah. And I did all that, again, just free of charge. I was doing house calls. I was taking people out of hospitals, stopping their, ventilator treatments, stopping their, remdesivir treatments. I never had one patient die. I never had one patient even go to the hospital. It was a success rate that everybody else will tell you that's out there. Mary Talley Bowden's treated over 6,000 people. She hasn't had anybody die either. Peter McCullough, Pierre Corey, even Vladimir Zelenko. I think he only had one death out of the number of people that he treated. And he says that the reason that happened is because they came to him weeks into the treatment and they were just not salvageable at that point. So I got indicted by the federal government in January 23. I said I wasn't going to take a plea. They never offered me a plea. I didn't do anything wrong. I abided by my oath to take care of my patients the way they wanted to. I didn't treat anybody according to the way that they didn't want to, or the way we didn't discuss it. And I thought that I was fully within my right to do that. There were no laws that were passed for COVID. I was not legally required to do this. The only laws that were violated were the HIPAA laws, where I had to disclose, or somebody else had to disclose, somebody's medical information to any other entity that just merely asked for it, which is actually a federal law violation. I don't see anybody being charged with that. But they charged me with fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, because it was more than one person, counterfeiting, and then they added a charge of destruction of government property and evidence tampering, which added another 20 years if convicted. So I went to trial in July after having tried multiple times to get things dismissed. I went to jail for 34 days total. And then halfway through our trial, halfway through the prosecution's presentation of their case, just as you said, Jeffrey, the Attorney General Bondi, at the behest of Marjorie Taylor Greene, RFK Jr., Thomas Massie, and Senator Lee, who they all finally kind of, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie didn't know about the case. Senator Lee did, and finally came out in our defense. And our case was dismissed on a Saturday morning, mid-case, which is an unprecedented event in federal prosecutions. And I'm a free man now, and I'm able to talk about everything that I'm talking to you guys about right now. So thanks for having me on.
Wow. So much I want to ask you, but I want to, did the fact that Comirnaty was actually never produced come up at all? Because they're charging you with fraud, but they were the fraud. I was a DEA agent. It would be like selling fake dope.
Yeah. You know, they filed a motion that the judge upheld. I wasn't allowed to talk about COVID. They were not allowed to, even though this was all about COVID and he was all about the shots. I couldn't bring in the people that wanted that. I couldn't bring in witnesses that came to me and having them tell their story of why they came to me as opposed to somebody else. I couldn't talk about the downsides of the COVID vaccine. I couldn't have witnesses come in and talk about the science about COVID. I couldn't have the patients that then had their shots come in and tell me why it was that they had them. And I couldn't bring in anybody in that had been damaged by the COVID shots, because the federal judge decided that that was irrelevant to the quote unquote fraud charge. Right before trial, they actually even limited my case. I wasn't even allowed to talk about intent. Fraud requires intent in this country. And I'd never intended to defraud anybody. It was a free product that was given to me that essentially the taxpayers had already paid for. So why am I defrauding somebody who's already defrauded us? So, anyway,
It's almost a shame
I was precluded, absolutely precluded from talking about any of that, which was a travesty. We already had our paperwork filed or ready to file for an appeal had I been convicted, because it would have been a total miscarriage of justice. It was nothing but lawfare. They were using me as an example to show to other doctors, this is what happens to you when you go against the government narrative. Thank God Attorney General Bondi stepped in. Certainly makes my life a lot easier. After 2.5 years of total prosecution and persecution, I'm finally able to kind of have a little freedom now.
Wow, that is awesome. Senator Shippy, thank you for coming on. We so appreciate that. And I hope you know what kind of rare category you're in after seeing RFK just get hammered up there by both parties, completely sold off. They're drug dealers. That's all they are. They're prostitutes for the drug pimps. I'm real familiar with that. That's what I did as a DEA agent. We certainly need more like you, but please. Well, I already have a question for you. Are you working with Idaho Freedom People? You know that group?
I'm not familiar with Idaho Freedom People. I guess there are different liberty groups in the state that I've worked with. Laura DEMARAY is a constituent of mine, and actually during the campaign trail, she approached me and said, "Hey, would you consider running some legislation that we're thinking about running?" And I was all for it. As Dr. Moore pointed out, it was really obvious from an early stage in the whole COVID pandemic that there was so much control of information, there was this narrative that you create a major catastrophe, a problem, and then you bring in the savior, and the COVID vaccine was actually brought in on those premises. Which was interesting to see that such a wide amount of people saw it as such. In fact, when we ran it was the Doug Cameron Act last, I believe it was February, in the Idaho Senate Health and Welfare Committee, and we had a hearing there. There were some individuals that showed up in opposition to the moratorium, the 10-year moratorium we were seeking to place on gene therapy products. And that was the only thing that they brought. These were emergency room doctors. These were nurses and others that showed up in opposition. There weren't a lot of them, but there were a few. And the story, along with other just citizens that showed up as well to talk about it, is they didn't talk about any science. They didn't talk about any evidence. The only thing they talked about was that they were without hope. It felt very religious. It felt like somebody sharing their testimony who came to the Lord Jesus through the gospel, where they were without hope, and everything looked bleak. There was nothing they could turn to, and then they heard the gospel about the COVID vaccination, and it brought them hope and joy and so forth. It was quite bizarre, honestly, and I think it was driven by such a deep fear, and then was presented as the savior. So it was kind of a no-brainer for so many people to receive it. And I've talked to so many folks since then, of course, that said, "Man, I received the one shot and then broke out in hives everywhere." My son has ichthyosis. Has always had some rough skin condition, and we're always looking for good lotions and so forth. And a local farmer that has raw milk and other things that she sells, eggs and so forth. She also makes this beef tallow lotion, and it works perfect for my son, and it's some of the best stuff. And how she formulated it was that after her first COVID shot, she grew these really bad hives that could find no relief, and so she developed this beef tallow lotion, and it was the only thing that would soothe it. And so she rejected any boosters and further shots and so forth. But I hear that story time and time again. Laura has just been a great help, and I'm not a scientist. I'm a sprinkler contractor. I'm nothing special. I'm out at a job site right now, in fact, and so taking a little bit of time just to be here with you guys. But it's been great to be able to work with scientists who know what they're talking about. They brought the receipts, and I believe in following the truth, not just following a narrative that's being pushed, especially when you're silencing all other voices. That just stinks from the beginning. And so that's, I guess, my perspective here. We do plan on bringing a similar piece of legislation this upcoming session. We're still working out the details on what that's going to be, but we're going to bring something. We're going to keep coming back and bringing the truth. So
I use tallow myself. The tribes swore by it. So when you said problem solution, you're familiar then with the Hegelian dialectic that they were running the PSYOP with, right?
No.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, that's the Hegelian dialectic is you criticize Western civilization and then you offer a solution, but you never criticize communism. Well, we need you to continue to get more guys like you in government and also rise up in government. Have you had pressure from above, from your party, for speaking out?
I'll be honest, it's been a little quiet from leadership. In fact, I would say leadership has largely been supportive at arm's length, maybe I should say, but not in strong opposition, which has been really helpful in advancing the conversation and getting as far as we did. And not everyone in leadership, but some key figures in leadership. So that's been really nice. Mainly the opposition has been from far left-leaning news outlets in Idaho, such as the Idaho Statesman. The Idaho Statesman went after me a number of times, whether with supposed news articles or with opinion pieces, and they would bring on their favorite, bring in their favorite doctors to give them the truth, and then kind of go after me as well. But it's kind of interesting in the Idaho legislature, at least in the Republican caucus. They say if the Idaho Statesman runs a piece against you, they count it as a trophy. Pin it on your wall. We've all been there. So, so
Yep.
it's you take the heat a little bit, but at the same time, you're over the target when certain groups are coming after you.
Very, very true. Very true. Well, I think it's who's doing it is the Praetorian Guard of the deep state, which is the FBI cover up and the CIA. Just like the Praetorian Guard decided who was the Roman, who would get to be the next Roman Caesar. But I think, Laura, as a military guy, I look at the doctors as the officers and the nurses as the NCOs, and NCOs, non-commissioned officers, are the backbone of the military. And I suspect they are the backbone of the medical system as well. And I suspect you are the leader of this great resistance and developer of all of this, and it sounds like it. So how did you come to do this and be so committed?
Really first and foremost, I guess to have my eyes opened pretty early, I just give glory to God for that, and also for all the wins that we've had. I would say, our team, and I sure don't take credit for that. It's a total team effort, and has probably had more wins than in any state, maybe in the world. But because, my smart friends show up, I'm pretty much just the science cat herder is what they call me. I herd my science cats, they say. And, God bless, Dr. Cole, Dr. Moore, Sasha Ladipova, Kevin McKernan, God bless them all for answering my calls. Dr. Wiseman, Nick Holcher, all these folks, Dr. Milhone, Dr. Thor, all of these guys I, consider on our team, and so many more have helped too, Harry Fisher, Dr. Moon. And so, and they show up, and Dr. Parks, every time. And so how I got into it was, I'm kind of a prepper from way back. I think you may remember I live off grid in the middle of nowhere, and I just follow God's prompting. And my husband and I moved to Idaho from Alaska, and we just felt we needed to get there. And as soon as I saw the COVID in 2019, because it was already kind of gaining steam, it hit Italy and China before 2020. And, I'm like, okay, this is why we're off grid. Okay, we're going to pay off our house now. And just kind of work on getting ready to be able to, we weren't sure what was going to happen, but we figured, the response is going to be way worse than the epidemic or the fake pandemic, essentially. And that was the case. And so right away, my husband and I were, just because of my already critical, suspicious, I've read deep state books for 20 years. And so I'm already not trusting anything or anyone except the word of God and Christ, So our whole community jumped in and did early home treatment. We found every piece of information we could find, from Dr. Zelenko, from Pierre Corey, from Dr. McCullough. I hunted down Dr. McCullough really early and talked about this as soon as the vaccine had come out or the, gene therapy shot came out. And I remember he said, because this was when he was getting really persecuted and sued and that kind of thing for speaking out, just as a doctor should. And he said, whatever you do, even if they come to your door with guns, do not take this. And I said, I will never take this, regardless of guns or anything. I will never take this. I would rather die. And so, but I won't, I'm in God's hands. He is him and him alone is who chooses who takes my life, and so our whole community, even politicians, were picking up meds for us. And it was full teamwork, this entire community in Idaho. I called it the Underground Medical Railroad. And
Cool.
We just kept going. And so, and then, we had, me and a bunch of moms had a information event where we had injured share their stories, not only of the hospital genocide, but the protocol. And then we had, continue on. I kind of connected with React 19, and I would start doing, I've had a couple of events for them, working on my third little event right now for them, and just for free. I don't take any money. My husband and I just only spend money. I have no organization. I help everybody. I'm just a helper. And so, nobody can send me money. Nobody can, donate, because go help React 19, go help somebody who you think is really making a difference out there, one of those freedom organizations, but or help your injured friends get treatment, because they are completely abandoned. If I might share a second what they deal with, because being an advocate for React 19, I'm just a volunteer, nobody's paid. I still cannot keep up with the emails of the injured Mr. Prather. And it is horrible story after horrible story. And I would say they're almost near just that one group, near 40,000 injured, severely injured. And people, it's like I've lost my teeth, my hair, I have cancer. My family won't help me. They think I'm crazy. I can't walk straight anymore. I can't, I have POTS, which is, it's you get tachycardia. It's like orthostatic hypotension, but all the time. And multiple neurological, cardiovascular, complete systemic issues, early stage, I would say turbo cancer, that is a new word, and it is a real thing, constant, and they have no compensation. And then, so with Brandon, with Senator Shippy taking this on this year, we're not sure the exact version, but so far the team is looking at child and pregnant women moratorium. We got signaled last year that that the legislature would take 2 years. We had 10. I don't care what version anybody takes or approves of. It is a bioweapon, a biothreat. It is a government operation, and Dr. Moore's case and also Brooke Jackson's case all indicated this, and it is on public record that anyone that is opposed to a moratorium of this because of, they don't want government to interfere with market choice. This is not a free market choice. And I will say some of the libertarian groups sort of don't want to help, and that's okay, because we're all trying to do our best. We're all trying to do good out there. So I have, no judgment of that. But if it's the market-based argument, how many billions of dollars, I've heard even trillions, but I am certain it's over 500 billion was sent to force this down the throat of the entire world and more. Trillions were exchanged, huge money laundering operation. But so all lines have been crossed as far as when do you recall a product or stop a product. And our higher levels of government have failed to do that, though they were involved in the implementation of that. So if the higher levels of government fail to protect the citizens, all these politicians in the state level, the counties, the health boards, even mayors, they have, and especially legislators, without a doubt, state legislators, it is your authority and duty to stand in the way, stand in the gap between, I would say, this huge operation pushing an illegal, untested, experimental, harmful product that should have been recalled 19,000 Americans ago, according to the VAERS reports. And of
39,000.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
There were 700 deaths in the month of January of 2021 alone.
Yes, sir. It the higher number is all the total VAERS, but yes. And then when like I get these people nitpick when we argue in the counties, they're like, it's not over 30,000. And, so you click, it's
anything over 50. They took the swine flu off the market in 1975 with 50 deaths. We had 700 deaths. I know, I was talking to I was just on the Tucker Carlson show. Tucker Carlson had two of his friends, I think he said one or two of his friends that died in the month of January from the shot, in his hometown or in his neighborhood or whatever, that died from it. So everybody knows somebody that has died from the shot. So sorry to interrupt, but
no, I want to go to you now, back to you. I kind of want to keep everybody here. Let me interrupt and go to you, Dr. Moore. So you're a flight surgeon, so you're either a lieutenant commander or colonel. I don't know if you retired or you got a dishonorable discharge.
No, I was only in, I did my medical school through an HPSP program, the Health Professions Scholarship Program. So I did 8 years in the Navy. I did 3 years of active duty, 5 years in the reserves. And so I was stationed in Meridian, Mississippi to a couple of squadrons there. I was never deployed. And I was formally out in July of 2001. So I've been out for a long time.
Well, so you said you agree that it's a bioweapon. As a fellow veteran, we don't say those things lightly, because if it's a bioweapon and it comes out of DARPA, which it does, and it was run by the DoD through the PrEP Act, which it was, then that is democide. That is the government killing its own citizens through fifth generation war that does not look like war. That is what I assess as a longtime intelligence officer. Do you agree with that at this point?
Absolutely agree. There's no doubt. As a matter of fact, they had at my trial, they had the head of BARDA, Gary Disbrow, come out as a witness against me. But they never presented the contract that he claims that he negotiated with the pharmaceutical companies. And the reason is, I told this to Tucker. I said, I think there's two reasons. One is I think it predates COVID. I think that the contract will show that the dates showed that they were starting to negotiate this mRNA technology prior to the COVID fiasco or the COVID fraud. And then the second reason is because it would have disclosed who it was that was paying for it and who it was that was doing it. This was by far and away, and Sasha Latipova, Catherine Watt have put that out there. This was a DoD operation. That's the reason why it was called Operation Warp Speed. Again, as Tucker brought it up, PHARMA doesn't talk about Operation this or Operation that. This was a government-run program by General Perna, Operation Warp Speed. And no doubt in my mind that this is what it is. Absolutely right, Jeffrey. It is a democide. It is a government-sanctioned humanitarian. It's war against humanity. The powers that be think that there's only a need for 500,000 people on this earth, and they can control 500,000 people. So they're trying to kill everybody. That's, in a nutshell, that's what I think is going on.
Well, I'm glad we're on the same page there, brother. Senator Shippy, as a godly man, do you agree with me as a Christian chaplain that the satanically sourced behind all this is to modify the DNA via the RNA, because the sulfuric bridges in between the DNA actually spell out in gematria Yahweh. So we're actually stamped by our creator of the sulfuric bridges. So really, I see this as satanically sourced, that your DNA gets modified. Is that too much of a stretch for you? Because you did mention your faith, or are you not aware of that at all, or any comments on that?
So that is the first that I'm hearing of it. I find that kind of fascinating. I recognize that there is a concerted effort to against ultimately the Imago Dei, the image of God that is found in humanity. We see that in the efforts of population control, the culture of death, I call it, whether it's through the infanticide through abortion, or other ways, such as the COVID shot that was so hastily and forcefully pushed upon humanity. I definitely believe this is more than just the physical realm and the natural realm that we're seeing here. There are spiritual forces at play here for sure. As I mentioned earlier, hearing the testimonies of those who opposed our bill, it was kind of bizarre to hear that. It was almost like you were at a religious service. And as human beings who are created in the image of God, the scripture says that he has placed eternity in our hearts. We are religious by nature. And if we don't turn to the true and living God, we will turn to something. We will have some sort of form of religion, one way or the other. So you see all, what's going on. There seems to be a lot of religious connotations and a lot of spiritual darkness that's pushing behind a lot of this. And so we see, of course, in the book of Daniel and other places where there are spiritual powers behind, different nations and so forth, that hold a lot of sway and power over the leaders of the nation and so forth. So I agree for sure with the underlying premise of the spiritual darkness. As far as the details of what you've just explained there, that's the first that I've heard of that. So
there's something to look into. The sulfuric bridges between the DNA strands that they're modifying through the mRNA, gematria corresponding to Hebrew letters, the numbers correspond to Yahweh. So we're literally stamped with our creator. But once that's modified, that really serves the adversary's purpose. Laura, are you familiar with the furin cleavage modification that to me clearly indicates that it was genetically modified? And that's exactly what Fauci said, but then denied was being done. To me, when I saw that, and I'm just a layman, it was obvious that was the furin cleavage was the modification. Although the original specimen has never been shown. Was that made clear to you early on? Or I'm just trying to get a feeling of where, with all your success, what was your level of intelligence, which is analyzed information? What was your proof, which is evidence that is admissible in court? Fact-based truth is admissible in court. Because I want Team America, who hopefully is listening, which is my organization, jeffreyprather.com/Team America. Americans relying on each other and God, just like when we started. Not corrupt government in Britain, not corrupt government in DC. Emulate your success here. So that's why I'm probing so that my listeners and my team members can gain your experience. So were you aware of the furin cleavage early on or no?
Yes, sir. As soon as not before, people like scientists were putting information out there. At first it's just distrust, and obviously for the first time in nursing and healthcare history, when you're told that there's nothing you can do until you can't breathe anymore, and then go in and get remdesivir and a ventilator. I mean, I'm with Dr. Moore on that, and Dr. Moore, you can interrupt me anytime, sir. You just go right ahead. I love it. Yes, but then many scientists were starting to discuss the furin cleavage. Now now, as for example, so I became friends pretty quick with Richard Hirschman, the mortician. So I have, so through him and, colleagues and things like that, we're all communicating, we're all looking at studies and preprints because, the world has changed. You're not always getting your data specifically from something that has been peer reviewed because there's such a war, obviously a corrupt war against the peer review process. However, for the first time in history, scientists are communicating together through the peer review process. And so you put it in preprint and they're communicating with each other. And so one of the things I learned about the furin cleavage through, friends like Richard Hirschman and things like that. And I have my own clots, by the way. I have my own clots that are related to that furin cleavage. That there is that in just the COVID, I would say beast itself, there were multiple avenues of HIV insertions. Several papers came out about that. Remember the Indian paper that came out and they crushed it, took it back out? They were already telling you about the various insertions and the creations. Also, the bat lady had put in fungus, a type of fungus from bats. Also, there's also this propensity for phosphorus. All right. So this then ties into the white fibrous clots that my friend Richard was showing me. And in those white fibrous clots, there is over 540 proteins, various proteins in that, and 10 and other odd things. Mike Adams analyzed it, but also Kevin McCairn, not McKernan, but Kevin McCairn, although Kevin McKernan is a genius and he's part of our team, thank God. But Kevin McCairn showed that just it increases the more you get. And then also the fact that the furin cleavage and its propensity for the phospholipids, which you've heard of the luciferase and things like that, will in the nanolipid, in the lipid nanoparticles, there's also a phospholipid in that. And so that exacerbates and feeds that white fibrous clot. And then, essentially it's the more you get and the more this phospholipid and this weird relationship, it's horrible. It's like a Frankenstein, and Dr. Wiseman calls it, Frankenstein, he calls it Frankenpfizer actually, but yes, sir. But all of that, I want to press one thing. So if people want to do something from the bottom up, we started with counties. For example, we just started with our very own county, and God bless them for having us. And it took 4 presentations, but then they decided, after hearing the real truth, the information, they bravely became the first county in the whole United States to vote recommending against this gene therapy jab in the world, really. And so, and then it built from there. At first, it was they recommended it against being on the child schedule. That was our baby bite. We just took one little baby step, and that's all it takes. And then it went forward and forward, and now we're at 10 counties, one in Washington State. Soon another one. We have another happening next week that a defunding vote is on the line. And we get a lot of pushback, and we get a lot of pushback from Washington State. I mean, it's like in the heart of the belly of the beast, But so then Southwest District Health, a doctor there who was brave and inspired, he helped drive our presentation. We had a showdown with their side and our side. The only thing that any other side can come up with, Mr. Prather, because we've had several showdowns with doctors of health boards and things like that, the only thing they can come up with is old talking points of CDC PowerPoints with no data, no studies. It's all smoke and mirrors. The emperor has no clothes. And so they were the first health agency to vote in the entire world against, to defund the jab. And then, then it just starts rolling, and we don't go deep into, for example, the depopulation, the transfer of wealth, the control, the transhumanism, and the anti-God agenda. We don't go deep into that because the world, when we're at this ground level in,
got it. Yeah, got it.
you know, like they cannot absorb it. That we're at shot bad. We are literally just shot bad. And that's enough for them because there's so much science involved, not because they're not intelligent. It's just that we've all been, you know, the world's been deceived, and, you know, the media will not, you know, tell the truth. And, you know, half the world is still watching CNN. So anyway, you know, it's just a respectful can of truth opened. And for the first time, they're hearing that there is high levels of DNA contamination, almost over 600 times too high. They're hearing about the genetic insertion, the mutations, the increased all-cause mortality. They're hearing about increased fetal demise, miscarriages, trouble having successful pregnancies. They're hearing about all of this for the first time in those public forums, and it's mostly opposition territory. So we're kind of at shot bad. You know, you just go in and try your best. So.
I love that. Just that's a little mimetic warfare. Shot bad. I do that all the time. Dr. Moore, have you thought about, since you're such a warrior, even though you didn't stay in, wished you had, we need more officer leaders like you. Have you thought about bringing a civil suit via the preponderance of the evidence, because you have been damaged and you can show damage, which then would require the federal government to show proof, to which they cannot do, because the whole thing here is this PrEP Act immunity is going to fold. In fact, I'm going to have I think next week I'm having some Norway freedom fighters on that are bringing a suit against that. Have you thought about that? And have you also noticed how the Russians specifically brought International Criminal Court charges against the Biden regime about all of this, because this is what started the special military operation, was genetic warfare via avian vectors, some drones, some drone swarms, some birds coming across. Have you thought about any of that?
Well, I don't know anything about the Russian stuff, to be honest with you, so I'll have to look that up. Or if you want to send me something, I'd be happy to kind of look into that. Always looking for more rabbit holes to go down. The thought of more legal stuff for me right now, I am totally, completely flat broke. This is part of the whole process. Yep. You know, Candace Owens will tell you that that's what it is. That, you know, the punishment, the process is the punishment here, and that's exactly what it is. They've completely, nearly bankrupted me. The thought of having more lawyers, unless somebody wants to come to me and say, hey, I'll do this on a contingency basis, and take it on, I have no interest in doing that. If I win the lottery and I'm able to hire somebody and do that, then yes. I mean, I truly think that, like we've talked about earlier, this was fraud upon fraud. They do not want to bring, I mean, this would be when my case first came out, Steve Kirsch, whom I've gotten to know a little bit, came out, I think, in February of 23, just a few weeks after my indictment and arraignment, and said this was the opportunity to get full discovery with COVID. It turns out that that's not the case. Like I said, they completely hamstrung me. They tried to muzzle me. They tried to do everything they could to not make this about COVID. But if I had the money and I had the ability and the wherewithal to be able to handle this kind of case, I certainly would go after them, because unless we get into a court system where they do the same thing that they're doing to Brooke Jackson and doing to everybody else, where they toss the cases out of court for no standing, I don't think that they can claim that they have no standing when I'm the one that's been injured and damaged, and I can show a loss of millions of dollars in revenue and everything else, I don't think they would be able to get away from that. But if but the answer, the easy answer to your question, Jeffrey, is yes, I have thought about it. The long answer to your question is that I don't have the money to be able to do it.
No, brother, I know. I was never even charged when they came after me for Fast and Furious. I had 5 lawyers. It cost me $75,000. They never even charged me. They were they just throw stuff at you.
Well, add a zero to that, and that's what I've spent.
No, I get it, and then I get the emotional trauma,
right?
Too. But
look, I'm a strong guy. I can handle it. I've got big shoulders. I can handle the stress side of it. Okay. No, there's nothing about that I couldn't do. I just can't handle the financial aspect of it. So, if there is a lawyer out there that's thinking about it, I know I've met a few. I have a meeting with a very prominent lawyer here, not personal meeting, but I'm going to be at a conference with a very prominent lawyer that's been an anti-COVID kind of attorney for the last 5 years. I've met, a couple of the other ones, and if they're at all interested in pursuing a civil case on my behalf, then, sign me up. I know Dr. Haim out of Texas, who was indicted for by the federal government also for quote unquote violating people's privacy information when he claimed that Texas Children's Hospital was still doing transgender surgeries when they were out in public saying that they were not. His case was dismissed 4 days after Donald Trump was inaugurated. I thought my case was next, and I went all the way to trial. So, and I know that Dr. Haim, I believe, is pursuing, legal recourse. I did have to sign the Hyde Amendment that I wouldn't go after them for my legal expenses, but it doesn't mean that I can't go after them for tort reform and for tort.
Yeah. No, you do. You can. You could.
So,
well, Tom Renz, I know we were working with Tom Renz to. We figured that Bondi was not going to go after Fauci. Bondi's been a huge disappointment. The AG. As a DOJ guy myself, the AG is the inflection point. If you have a corrupt AG, then everything goes. And she hasn't done much. She did for you, which I'm glad about. But Senator Shippy, our efforts at Team America have been pushing states to go after Fauci and company, or even lower hanging fruit, because it's just not going to happen anytime soon, if at all. At the Attorney General level, but we're not even seeing it happen at state level. Are you interested in or pursuing any efforts besides defensive measures about your legislation that you're working on? Are you interested in pursuing any state indictments with your Attorney General, or do you have that kind of juice yet, or what do you say about that?
Yeah, I have not. That really hasn't crossed my radar a lot. I know Representative Josh Tanner ran, I believe, either a resolution, or I don't remember what it was for sure, seeking to nullify the pardon with Dr. Anthony Fauci, and so there have been some efforts by others, probably Rep Josh Tanner, who I believe is the majority leader in the House. He's done some work in that area. But it hasn't crossed my radar a lot in what I've done. But I do want to apologize. My device is just about to die on me. And so it's going to be shutting me off here in just a minute, I'm sure. It's showing that I just have a few % battery left. So I wasn't sure how much longer you're going here, but I might have to just jump off here in a minute or two. I apologize.
No, not at all. So, well, please go ahead then. We'll hear from you while we can about your efforts to further stop all the mRNA bioweapons. Please go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on. I'll jump off here.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you so
Brandon,
much.
nice to meet you. We'll talk soon.
Good to meet you. All right. Take care, guys.
Thank you. Well, sorry we're going long, but I think it's worth doing because hopefully Team America is listening, and the audience. Please sue. Yeah, but well, it's easy to say that, but yeah, I will put you in. I'll send you some of the stuff on the special military operation was brought about because the Russia military had evidence that there were avian vectors with genetic modifiers coming out of the U.S. biolabs and the commercial labs. I think there were 46 U.S. DoD, BARDA, DARPA, and there was over 100 big pharma labs over there. And that went to the International Criminal Court with a lot of evidence of that. And they specifically named Biden and Obama. Obama went over there in 1995 with Senator Lugar to establish the biolabs as well. So I just thought your military background could be very unique and important. And I'll send you some stuff on that. Please send me some information on Dr. Haim as well. And I can put you in touch with Tom Renz if you're not already.
I know Tom. I'll text him. I met him in Washington D.C. a few weeks ago, and I've got his number. I'll reach out to him and ask him. I know that he's been fighting this since the beginning as well. But Bob Barnes has as well. Warner Mendenhall, Aaron Siri. All of them seem to have this. But I think a lot of them are already taking a lot of these cases that they have. We mentioned React 19. Brianne Dressen is one of the co-founders. She's a really, really close friend of mine. Aaron Siri's got a case going with her. But the problem is, it's the issue is financial in a lot of ways. It's really crazy to me. I brought this up at a couple of other podcasts where Christine Blasey Ford can make false accusations against, Brett Kavanaugh and get $4 million in donations to her, Give, Send, Go, and retire from that out of a teaching position in California. And the rest of us who are kind of, in a sense, fighting for humanity are struggling just to cover our bills. She doesn't have to teach anymore. She's retired. She's done. She's gone. She sold her house in California, made, money from that, plus the money that she got from her Give, Send, Go for basically a fake accusation against somebody 50 years ago that never happened. But there's so much, you mentioned this before, Laura. There's so much money involved. There's so much money laundering involved. When all this stuff was going on with USAID, my dad was in the service. When he retired from the service, he was traveling all over the world with an Italian aircraft company. And we were going to all these countries. And even back then, my parents knew that USAID was a corrupt organization. And we're talking about the late 60s, early 70s. And now we're talking, 50 years later. And finally, hopefully this thing got shut down to some degree, at least. But this whole COVID thing was the largest transfer of wealth from the lower and middle class to the elites ever in the history of humanity. There's more billionaires that were created in the last 5 years than in the history of mankind. So it's really astonishing to me that people still don't realize it and don't understand it. I'm sorry if I looked a little distracted, but Andrew Zywick posted something on X here just either yesterday or today, and he is talking about how it's people need to realize what it is that's going on. Let me see if I can find it because it was just pretty powerful. I want to read it. It talked about like how people need to wake up and kind of smell the coffee and realize what it is that's happening to us, because if they don't wake up, it's essentially going to be too late. And sorry if I'm not stalling here necessarily, but I have to try to find that.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We've got Dr. Margaret Aranda Ferrante, MD, PhD, FACFEI, which I don't even know what that is, saying nice work. Not familiar with this format, but very nice. Keep fighting. Yeah,
I'm streaming this, I think, on my X channel too. So I hope you don't mind.
No, I'm glad. if there's questions, put them up in the chat, and I will ask them. Somebody suggesting GoFundMe. Don't do GoFundMe. Go Give Send Go is Heather runs that. I know her. She's
I
great.
have a Give Send Go that's collected about half of what we need.
Okay, well, email that to me, and I'll post that on my Patreon locals as well.
Okay.
Please. Have you ever thought about the Medical Association bringing case against the government for interfering with doctors' medical care? Medical Association's in on it, Connie.
Yeah, all the medical associations are paid. They get their primary funding is from Big Pharma.
Yeah. I'd like to, could I mention something about that?
Sure.
Dr. Thorpe and Maggie Thorpe very early on brought into the county level the FOIA document and the information that they found where, and this is just one small aspect, but the medical associations and community organizations, including some churches, unfortunately, essentially had $13 billion given to them to promote this. Now they've found even more now. However, Dr. Thorpe, he, for example, him and Tom Renz are going to give testimony in this next Washington State event we have, and they're going to open up a can of truth on the fetal demise, the increased stillbirth, also the FOIA information and the transfer of wealth and the money laundering that essentially the medical associations took. So no, they made a lot of money to influence the OBGYNs and the pediatricians, and many of them felt threatened, because if you look at our team, almost all of them have been sued, threatened. I don't have any money, but I get stalkers, and all of them do. They all get people faking their accounts and just trying everything. It's like the dark side has an endless amount of money and wickedness, but but God, because we still are winning. And I see the liberation of Dr. Kirk or Dr. Kirk Moore. And I really think that he'll be a part of crushing the gene therapy immunizations. And this is for infectious disease indication. I want to point out, because some of the opposition was, oh, you'll stop, cancer research. You'll stop, you'll stop helping genetic disorders. No, this is nothing about that. We didn't even include animals in our Idaho version because we don't want big ag in the fight. But essentially it's for infectious disease indication, which means the gene therapy flu shot that's, already made, all the gene therapy, essentially vaccines. And that's what we're fighting here. And I actually think we have a chance to win because they already are investing so many billions and billions of dollars into the cancer treatments that they know they've created cancer. So their future is, and they destroyed guts. So I'm an ostomy nurse and a wound nurse. And so, I see destroyed guts all the time and various cancers, super turbo cancers, like, oh, it was in remission and all of a sudden it started. This is the case over and over, and also in the emails I get, from the injured. So, and we try to prove that, for example, Dr. Kirk Moore, he is right that there's like almost 40,000 people on VAERS that have reported. It's almost 20,000 of Americans. It's a little over 19,000 just Americans, but the 40 is everyone. However, as I've heard Dr. Moore say, it's underreported.
Right. VAERS is 1%.
VAERS,
I believe, is 1%.
Yeah, there's a study, right? A 2010 Harvard study, I think, that showed that it was, at less than 1% of, these were studied. I'm going to read this to you. Dr. Andrew Zywick, the people fighting against vaccines are willing to sacrifice their career, titles, life's work, status, and success just to warn people about the risks and proven harms. The people fighting to force vaccines are willing to take away your career, titles, life's work, status, and success if you don't submit and take them without any information or consent about the risks and proven harms. Do you see the difference? It's a simple test of logic. Figure it out faster. And I answered that. And, you know, my answer was somewhat colorful, but in other words, wake the F up before you die or kill your family. Simple logic. So, you know, that's the reality. You know, right now we're in a situation where these people that still believe the narrative and are unwilling to open their eyes up to what it is that's happening to them are killing themselves and killing their families. And it's, you know, it's just the ultimate, like you said, Jeffrey, ultimate indemnicide, genocide. You know, Joe Altman 2.5 years ago told me that, you know, essentially, Kirk, you realize that you're being indicted for not murdering and maiming your patients. And that's, you know, that's exactly what it is. These people that are doing these injections and that are pandering to, you know, big pharma and pandering to the politicians and pandering to the medical establishment and everything else are murdering and maiming their patients. They are just, you know, the number one organ that these lipid nanoparticle mRNA products go after is the ovaries and the testes. You know, fertility is down by, you know, some measure of at least 30-some-odd%. We are now in a situation where almost every European country that's out there is below replacement level. We are getting to that point now. So unless people start seeing the writing on the wall here, we're really significantly in trouble. And we're going to leave a world for our kids behind that is, you know, that is really disturbing.
Well, I thank you guys for coming on. It's an honor. I'm so impressed with what you're doing. You know, back in I think 2020, I was at the first Clay Clark speakers dinner, and my wife went up to General Flynn and said, "Hey, you know what you just went through with the FBI? My husband went through with the DEA 10 years ago, and God is preparing you for this." And I will say the same thing to you, Dr. Moore, as I think God has prepared you now to stand up and tell your story and be a chem light in the sand. I've
already talked to Laura about this. I won a battle. The war is still out there to be won. So I don't like warrior references necessarily, but you know, just because there are people that are actually dying in war, and I'm not physically dying, but I don't know what better terminology this is right now, because we truly are in a fight for humanity. So thanks for having me on, Jeffrey. Laura, it's actually finally good to put a face to the voice. I'm gonna get running. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. God bless. Keep up the fight, brother.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moore. Thanks so much. It's so nice to see you, or like meet you online.
Well, very cool. I didn't even know that you had not met him personally, but that you are leading this remote effort. You should be on Team America, or Team America should be working with you. Actually, you're on Proton Mail, so Proton Mail and Signal, that's and commitment. That's all the requirements. I'll check and see if we have a Idaho confidential asset. At least I don't think we have a team there, but you have done a fabulous job of putting this together, and clearly the great Holy Spirit is helping you do all this. And I salute you and thank you. And do you have any closing words of wisdom or advice for anyone?
Well, Brandon, Senator Shippy said thank you. He was having trouble hearing at the end, and his phone was glitching out. He said thank you so much, and then also I just, I give God the glory, because I love how the Bible uses people who are not perfect, and so every single one of us is, God equips us to actually jump into this opposition territory, and, very respectfully and very faith-filled, you just go and hold the line and encourage your legislators, your county commissioners, especially your state legislators. Imagine when we get to that 15 state, like we're gaining states. I have a conversation with a senator today for another state, and I think we'll have at least 15 states pushing back this next session. And it's one person at a time, one phone call at a time. If you mess up in any presentation, don't worry, just keep going, because you know what? It's, God does all the work anyway. You just show up. You just show up and be willing.
Show up. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. That's exactly right.
It's okay to be a dork. I'm not cool. And I thank you, for always taking the hits too. And it doesn't matter if you have agreements with every single person in your team, your science team, or the team that you're working with in your state. We all come from we're in different processes. We're all, different faiths and things like that. Or different doctrine of our faith. I'd say mostly the people I work with are Jews and Christians. It just seemed like to turn out that way, that, we're just like putting it all on the line. So it doesn't matter that you agree on every point. What matters is that the big picture is we're all serving God, and it's all about souls. And so, he protects us. He's the one that gives us strength and the words when you're up in that opposition territory. So be encouraged. And thank you for talking with all of us today, Mr. Prather.
No, thank you. How can people get a hold of you? I have several people wanting to contact you.
Oh, yes, sir. I don't have an organization, but it's just they can send me an email if that's all right. It's L DEMARAY RN at protonmail.com. So L like Laura, and then DEMARAY, DEMARAY RN like registered nurse, at protonmail.com. And I'll do my best to get back with everybody. And honestly, sometimes my emails don't get to me, and sometimes they don't get to other people. So you don't hear from me, send me another email. My phone gets messed up. We have crazy things happen, Mr. Prather. I just keep on keeping on.
No, that's adversarial electronic interference. It's very common. I've seen it happen many times.
Oh, yes, sir.
I am putting that in right now. L DEMARAY RN.
Yes, sir.
At protonmail.com.
Yes, sir. At protonmail.com.
Okay, I'm going to put this in the Proton chat for everybody that's asking.
And always pray before you go into these opposition territories.
Definitely.
Because I'll tell you what, it is nothing but spiritual warfare. It is nothing.
That's right. Great. Well, God bless, and thank you for everything you're doing, and thank you for coming on. And I will, I'll email Dr. Moore some of that stuff, and let me know if I can be of any help to you as well, or your son if he wants to talk about the military. All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, and you just take care. And big hugs to you, Mr. Prather.
Thank you. God bless. Okay, so that was a really wonderful, moving show. With some real heroes. It's always cool to have real heroes on. So remember, with the fortitude of faith, emotional adulthood, and crucibled by adversity, somebody's saying crucibled there in the chat, we will win, but we are not always winning. And winning is difficult, demanding, and always expensive. No plan survives first contact. Plans are useless. Planning is invaluable. Develop the situation before it develops you. Our ranks grow daily, as does our resolve. Tyrants always fall. Tyranny inevitably fails. Fear is natural, but it's a reaction. Courage is a decision and is contagious. I will never surrender. I am always hopeful because I am always faith-filled. But my analysis is and will remain ruthlessly truthful. Intelligence prepares the battlefield, nothing more. The battle is joined. The herd will be culled. Don't be in the call. Nobody is coming. It's up to us. We have to be our own QRF, quick reaction force. Neighbor up, team up, train up with Team America. Keep your trusted circle tight. We stand together alone. God has a plan. Us.